Meeting to order. We have proof of notice of the meeting. We don't have any correspondence. There's no public comment. Any reports of the officers? All right, we'll move on to reports of committees. So for property management, we did have a really good meeting last time. We made a list of things to do, and I think Caitlin sent that out to everybody today, which I'm sure you didn't have time to look at yet, but we've translated that strategic plan into an action list. We went over that with underutilized property and with property management. The only one we haven't done yet is the green belt / green space. So that will come at the next meeting. And if you want to have a chance to skim over that, you can see kind of, we just try to break things down into what needs to be done and to move forward. There's no city manager. Do you have a report, Ricky?
Yeah, and actually Caitlin and I will tag team that. Just the blue folder that you have has a couple items in it. The top page includes the action items from the last meeting. And Jessica and I have talked about this, but going forward after our meetings, what we plan to do as staff is to provide this a week after the meeting, this sheet here, basically action items that staff will work on between now and the next meeting. And so that's what we'll go over with you in a minute regarding our progress. There is a time schedule for the demolition of properties tentatively for 570, 635, and 637 Brockway Avenue. All of the asbestos reports and inspections have been completed, and we have the reports. Everything's been cleared by the SHPO, so that's great. Just need to do one or two other checks with the state, but we should be able to get that out and follow this timeline and with maybe some modifications down the road, but that's what we're expecting right now on that. And then you have the update from Mr. Simonton in your packet as well. And then the updated strategic plan that's been translated by Caitlin into this kind of working document that's color-coded by committee. That's also in your, well, that's not in your packet. That's for staff, but you have that electronically, and we can provide a hard copy if you like. But for now, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Caitlin to go through some of the items she's been working on for the last month, and then I'll pick it up at the end.
Can I just ask one question about this, the demo? Are you using CDBG funds for that, or the DEP funds?
The DLAP funds.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
So on the action items list, we broke it down by responsibility, so I'm just going to talk about my items. So work with communications to update promotional materials to reflect change referenced above and post on the agency's website. That's referencing the materials for 430 Spruce. There was some updates to that, so we got that updated, and then we have updates to the brochure as well, and it was mostly pertaining to the internet rates. So that is done, and that's up to date. We have done this, the next item was to transpose the strategic plan update into a working document. So like Jessica mentioned, we've almost finished that. We just have the Greenbelt Committee left to complete on that. I did check with the IT department about a shared drive space. We can do that from, as far as I understand, for you guys from an IT perspective. I'm not sure if there's any kind of rules or regulations as far as what you're allowed to have public, or if that all needs to be public. I'm not sure. There was a question about this with the Traffic Commission too. They also wanted to do a shared drive, and they weren't sure if they were allowed to. So I don't, if that's something that needs to be public, I'm not sure about, but otherwise from an IT perspective, we're good on that. I would just need to get your email addresses that you'd like to have on file. So.
Ryan, could you answer that, or if we had a shared drive for documents that pertain to the agency, does it have to be made public?
Whether they're stored on a shared drive or not wouldn't have any impact. They wouldn't have to be just publicly accessible. Now, if they are public records under the Freedom of Information Act, then they are subject to disclosure if somebody requests them. But that's the same rule obtains now, where documents are not stored on a city shared drive.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter.
So we would need to provide like a link to the shared drive on the agenda, for example. That's not necessary. Okay, cool. So then in that case, we would just need your email address, which I have, but unless you want a different one on file for whatever reason, then yeah, we can go ahead and get that set up and going. Follow up with UDV regarding criteria for conditions needs assessment. So that's regarding what we would need what criteria HUD would like to be looking at for some of these basic conditions assessments. I reached out to Chris on that 3 times, and I just haven't heard back from him yet, so I think we just need to follow up with a phone call. Ricky was tagged on that last one. I don't know if they're just busy. So we just still need to get an update on that. Update property donation handout and post on the agency's landing page. I think we've done that, and that's completed. The property donation handout is on the page. And the online application is up as well. Follow up with communications about updating agency's website to include a link to property database for MAP and West Virginia Economic Development. So and this is about, a little bit about getting 430 Spruce and how to market 430 Spruce. So Brad with communications said that we cannot put it on Facebook Marketplace. Unfortunately, we just don't have that kind of account. It's an account restriction type of thing. And same thing with Zillow. We would have to have a specialized account in order to do that. Or I think we would have to pay for an account. And so what was explained to me was that the agency could do that independently, but we as the city wouldn't be able to do that. So that was just how that was explained to me, but we would be able to continue moving forward with that MAP, Morgantown Area Partnership Tool. I think last time we talked about that, it was just a little, what the discussion was that maybe some of that was out of date, and that it wasn't going to be as useful as some of these
I don't think anyone looks at that.
Yeah. So later on the discussion items, we have, an opportunity to talk about potential alternative marketing strategies for that. Had some ideas I could share about that. But as far as getting that up to date, that's kind of where we're at on that. And was there a second page of this, or is there only one?
No, that was it.
Okay, then I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Independently put it on Zillow and...
Yes, and on Facebook Marketplace, yes, but
We can just put one...
it just
as a
depends on,
contact person?
yeah, it would have to be independent of the city,
So
basically.
why don't you just set it up as an account under the agency?
That is a possibility. I
Yes,
think
we can
Brad-
do that, and he said that that was an option.
I think we'd want to have more conversations with communications about that, like how it would be managed. I think that's what he wanted to do if we do go that route.
Yeah, I think that is an option that you can do, like, as an agency. I think there was just some talks about, like, how you would do it, basically, like, how you would conduct that, so.
We gotta get past this hurdle somehow. I mean, I don't know, we have property to lease and we don't
I
have a
think
way to advertise.
I don't want to speak on their behalf, but I think it's just from a moderation perspective of how, like, how to moderate all these different agencies if they all have their own Facebook, you know what I mean? So I don't know that that's what it is, but I think that's kind of where that's coming from.
Well, and in the
So-
beginning, they don't have any friends or followers. I mean...
Yeah, you have to start
better-
from scratch.
So you put a nice, not nice, but seriously, if you wrote something up that said, I'm a member of the Land Reuse Commission, by the way, I don't know if you know, 430 Spruce, we have A, B, and C available. If you're interested in this, contact X. I mean,
We could
at least
post it.
people on here, we have followers, and there's, we'll put it on the Morgantown, whatever, there's some Morgantown.
I may be wrong, we can look into this too, but it may have been said, and maybe you remember, that you can share it to, I know you can't share the marketplace, but you can share it to whatever page you would like to independently, but yeah, just as an agency, you might have to create your own Facebook page to do a marketplace posting, so.
I also think if you tag, Danielle Trumbull has that weekly update. If you share it to her page and that, you're probably hitting the group that you're looking for. Right? I mean, we're looking for professionals practicing here in Morgan.
I didn't view it that as a hard no, it was just something that we would need to work out the logistics on, so yeah. But,
Do
You know.
do other agencies have their own Facebook page? Are there any other committees, commissions that have?
I don't know.
They do.
Yeah.
The city has a social media policy, and so if you want to set up a social media page, you just need to give communications access so they can moderate under that policy and under our specific rules as a public entity, but it shouldn't be any problem. And
Okay.
We should
So
do that anyway.
we'll just reach out to,
It's a way to share information, what we're doing.
Just to have a page?
just have a page, and then it'll open up the marketplace. And then you can share it from there. I think it's worth doing.
It'd be nice to have that way to share photos of our projects and all that stuff, so.
Okay, so we'll look into exploring that further so that you guys can get set up with that, and that'll open up the marketplace option.
Thank you.
Cool.
Going back to the donation page, sorry. Is there any way we could take a vote on just paying for a full-page advertisement in the Dominion Post to run it?
For the property donation, is that what,
I mean, I think the idea is we want to have a campaign for property donations. And what I've been talking to you about for a while is I want to identify criteria for people that we want to target, which is different than what you're saying. You're saying an open call, but I think we should concoct a plan that includes both these things. You know, writing letters specifically to people who own properties that are vacant, that have large amounts of city liens. You know, we've gone through this list before. And then also, we should advertise.
Well, the Dominion Post is a very select group of people.
Old
that
people,
I think that
yes.
we need to target, is what I'm saying. So that's why I think it would be appropriate.
well, I think that's, yeah, I don't, I mean, as far as what you can do, I'm not sure, but like, that is a good short-term strategy, and then we've started drafting a list of property criteria that we can continue to build off of, but in the short term, could easily just go ahead and get something up in the Dominion Post, I would think. I mean,
Yeah, just as a follow-up, you're thinking more something that's like designed graphically and appealing as opposed to just kind of a legal ad in the back of the news.
So like the
You know, like
handout
something more
that
glossy,
Caitlin
yeah.
had put together, I don't see why we couldn't just get a full-page ad of that. I mean, we have enough money to pay for it. And
Yeah.
see even if it gets us one property, it's worth it.
Make a motion.
To get, yeah,
Well, that's what I was asking, can we do that?
Yes.
I move that we pay for a full-page ad in the Dominion Post for property donation. I need a second.
Do we have a second?
we'll design it.
You can second and then we'll discuss if you want.
I'll second with discussion.
Any discussion?
I mean, what does a full-page ad cost today?
Yeah. That was my first question.
$4,500.
$4,500?
$4,500.
In the paper that no one subscribes to?
A full-page ad?
So when we do our legal.
Okay, how about this? Could we ask you to look into the pricing of the ads and come back and give us the options? And we would like to move forward on that.
So we'll withdraw the motion and we'll come back with pricing and
I think we could table it and
Yeah, and then in the meantime, we can scoot this
Do we have a motion to approve?
I would make a motion to approve the minutes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, actually, I'm sorry, we're skipping a section, though. We did half of this update, and then we got cut off. The lights went out.
There's just a few things if you wanted us, or you want to keep going forward, that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's anything you want us to know particularly, tell us, but if it's just like we've done a task that we needed to do, then
Okay.
I don't know that we need an update on that. Yeah.
The one of note is that in the 2025 action plan in the CDBG program, there is funding set aside for the green space project in Lower Greenmont, and that's available in the public right now. So there is funds, it was worked out that there was able to be funds allocated towards that.
Okay,
So,
cool.
yes,
And those are funds in hand, or those are funds that we anticipate to have?
funds to be approved, so they have to, the CDBG program, they have to go through city council and whatnot, and obviously approved by HUD, but there is money set aside to work on that project, the plan. It's not there yet, it has to be approved, but
And again, for planning, not for acquisition.
this is to do many different things to build out the space.
So it could be to hire a consultant, it could be to acquire.
To do actual physical improvements. Yep. And then is there anything else? And then just one other update was with the, I talked to Robin, who's our grant writer, about the congressional direct spending, and they're still working on the actual grant application that needs to be submitted to HUD, but there is funding available for planning and soft costs associated with affordable housing, infrastructure, and some other things. So that's still in the works, but yeah, it's moving forward.
From what I understood from Robin, that CDBG funds for the green space wouldn't be available till like September, October.
It would what?
Wouldn't be available until September, October.
That's right, yeah.
Right.
That's staff's report.
All right, thank you. Strategic plan update. Did you want to say anything about that, Kate?
Yeah, I mean, this is similar, so we had some deadlines, and basically, I can kind of, I don't know, how do you want to do this? We can talk about sort of some of the deadlines that we've hit and talk about. or
I
do
mean,
you
I don't
wanna-
think we need to go through, like, if you've done something, you don't have to let us know unless there's something for us to
Yeah,
discuss or decide.
So some of it's more like, for example, one of these tasks was to plan and facilitate park amenities in floodplain green space next to Penn Avenue. So some of these efforts we, are obviously working towards and are in progress. I don't think we have a significant update right now. Let me make sure that there's nothing that we want to, so I'm sorry that Ryan left, because one thing that we do need an update on still is the side yard project. He's still reviewing the fees for that, but essentially we're pretty well established on that, I feel. We just need to get the go-ahead on that, and then we'll basically be ready to go.
That's pretty much it.
That's it? Okay. Yeah, I think otherwise that's about all the update items. Yeah, we looked at this property criteria. We're going to build that out a little bit more. Yeah, if there's anything you guys have specific questions about, I can answer questions towards it. There's a couple other things on here, like site assessment stuff. There's stuff about providing you all with some resources about affordable housing trends and things like that. We've started to compile some of that stuff, and we can give it to you via email, so, yeah. But yeah. Otherwise, we just need to continue to build out this list, so.
Can we go back to my motion that was interrupted?
Yeah, I feel like I want to discuss that in conjunction with the side lot program too. Like, to me, it's like if we're going to do a side lot program, we need to tell people that we're doing a side lot program. And I think if we're going to, I don't necessarily agree that we need to wait until we have something good to say in order to say we'd like to have donations of properties. I mean, what do you all think about that? Or what did you want to
I
say
still
about
think we
that?
should explore taking out an ad. I was just very shocked at the price, and I take back what I said about the Dominion Post. I do feel like we should utilize the paper for advertising. I do think there is a good readership there, so if that's something we want to look at prices, maybe we can discuss that later, but we need to get word out somehow, and I don't know how we're going to do it.
I would like to have a plan for how we're going to do these couple different things. I mean, I think it should include the paper, social media, other strategies that we could discuss and come up with.
So we need a communications plan.
So
I
that's
think
been
so,
discussed. We've
yeah.
talked about, it's been on the list a couple times about developing a communication strategy for the property donation. I think, that's kind of where this property criteria list is coming into, too, is how you got to develop the communication strategy based on who your target audience is a little bit.
Well, and I think that's a separate kind of component of
That's,
it, right?
yeah, that's what I was going to say, is there's also this approach that you're talking about where it's just kind of blasting it to whomever might catch it and be interested, right? So,
I mean, like you had said, like, we could post it in, like, nursing homes or something where people are, like, old and have property and,
so this is a discussion item for later, but what I wanted to talk about with 430 Spruce and on-the-ground campaign too, like some more physical sort of, because obviously there's Facebook, but then there's people that you just can't reach through that avenue or whatever, or there's, different kind of complications with that. So in the context of 430 Spruce, wanted to talk about maybe having, for example, brochure at the farmer's market and potentially conducting like an open house or something for that space. So if there's a way to kind of think in that line of thing of how to produce or how to advertise, I don't know. I think maybe that's worth exploring a little bit too, so that we're not just saying, well, what other online platforms can we do, or what other. So anyway, I think maybe in the context of how to get it out there, looking at some on-the-ground advertising might be worth it too.
I mean, I think flyers,
Yeah,
Can you
exactly.
put up an office space for rent sign?
Yeah.
Well, and like some of these events that are happening, like at the Arts Walk and stuff, is there an opportunity to have some handout material
Got a huge
there?
audience in the farmer's market.
Yeah, exactly.
Event tables.
We have a brochure for one of the properties, but if we could develop some materials for some other, or some other kinds of materials to, other than my thing that I've done for the property donations, then,
Any opportunities to partner with the chamber with like their morning or evening after hours? I don't know.
I like the idea, but the problem, I think the challenge is a bigger perspective of a communication plan, because
Right.
I have found through our marketing is you hit them once and you hit them again, you hit them again. It's not just the one ad. One ad may be they'll stir some dust, but you gotta follow up, right? You gotta keep hitting them. So that's the challenge, is how do you keep hitting them and how do you get to your target audience? I don't know how that happens, but I think that's the strategy that needs to be
part of
developed.
that's part of the benefit of you guys if you had your own Facebook page
Yeah.
too. You would be able to hit some of those online avenues, but I think it might be worth exploring some more like physical on the ground kind of advertising too.
I mean, I feel like the neighborhood associations could be a good
Yeah.
place to disseminate this, and if you're already going to those, then that could
Yes,
be a
I mean, I
nice-
haven't been this past month, but I intend to start going again, so yeah. Yeah, definitely. So I think if we can start thinking about that and get like some more promotional materials ready to go and start thinking about where we can hand some of this stuff out so that it's word of mouth communication a little bit more, that may be helpful, I don't know.
You might, I think the map, that e-blast is
Yes.
$100.
Yeah.
If we're willing to pay commission, I'd send it over to all the different brokers in town. Going to the population, you might want to send it to the people who do estate planning.
I thought that too.
That's more part of the conversation that you're gonna have. We may just look at our professional community, CPAs, attorneys, maybe the e-blasts, the brokers in town, stuff like that, maybe start there.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think your strategy is twofold. It's a targeted strategy, and then it's also sort of just a get the word out strategy too. So, but I think we just need to specify exactly what you want to do online and exactly what we want to do on the ground so that we can get that promotional material developed and then start moving forward with that. So, yeah, just some key messages, I think, for both, and then the target audience and building out, that property criteria list a little bit further for that specified group, I think would be beneficial towards the comms strategy,
So do you think we need to, I mean, does one of us need to meet with Brad and you, or what's the next step there, you think?
Leverage the communications group here in the city.
Yeah, I think so, and I think what would be helpful, yes, I think a meeting would be helpful, so that, like, you know, because you could tell me, but it would be easier to just kind of all be in the room and they can talk about what they can do as well, you know? So I think a meeting would be good. Yeah. Because we can talk about other things too, about how to manage some of these properties that you're already in possession of, you know, like how to, what other strategies might be available for 430 Spruce too.
I think, you know, at some point, you know, maybe a few of you, go down and meet with the new editor of the paper. Go over and see Mike Knowles, get on Morgantown AM. And then we send the letters and some things like that. I mean,
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Okay. So I will see if we can set up a meeting with our comms department, and we'll talk about what we can do, what options are available.
So I'd like to propose we amend your motion and say that we develop a communication plan that might include this advertisement.
Do we have a second? Resounding over here.
I'll second.
All those in
Is there
favor?
another indie newspaper we can advertise?
That's the group we need, though.
I disagree.
All those in favor?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Anything to report on the data collection for the Little Green Mountain? It sounds like you just didn't have a success contacting Chris, so we need to...
No, yeah, I did not.
But he's engaged, I mean, he's under contract, and they're doing that task, is that right?
Yeah, I assume so. I haven't really had any contact with them, so I don't know. I can't speak towards them.
No, they're not under
Okay.
contract to do that work. We were working with him if they could give us guidance to do that kind of recon.
I understood that that was a task that they were gonna be doing,
I thought so too.
you know.
I mean, I thought that...
He brought that to us in the strategy session, that's something that they...
But yes, under the congressional direct spending, again, we're probably fall before we would know if we'd be able to utilize those funds or how to, so.
That's not a CDBG task? Aren't they under contract with the city as a CBDG consultant?
They are, but that's not in their scope of work. My understanding is to do that level of analysis. I thought staff was supposed to work on that in anticipation of working towards a larger plan to designate that particular area. And in doing so, we reached out to see if we could get information about how to get the information.
That'd be great if staff had time, but you guys don't have time to do that, do you?
Well, I think we do. We just need to know what are the columns, like what is the information that needs to be collected, and then our teams can go out and do it.
So could you just follow up with a phone call and see if you can get him to get
Yes,
back?
so that's the next plan. Email's not been successful, but that's the context of what my communication has been with them so far is, hey, can we get some more information on what we need to be looking for in terms of criteria for this?
Okay, all right.
So, yeah.
All right, next.
And, sorry, in that same vein of organizing and collecting data, we have an opportunity to meet, I know this is unrelated, but in the vein of organizing data, we have an opportunity to meet with the Brownfields Association folks again, a follow-up meeting on the building out the rubric, so.
Close that loop.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, moving on to the Greenbelt Connections Committee, we've sort of thrown around the idea of restructuring that so that it's more generic and could encompass more things instead of just the Greenbelt.
Green space,
Green space.
open space, whatever.
Yeah, so it could be anything that needs to be conservation or park or whatever. Anyone opposed to that idea? Okay. Do you want to define more what that could include, or are we?
Well, I mean, I think it doesn't have to be rocket science. I mean, I think mostly just, if we were just to shift it, we can still keep it vague, but green space is going to be more encompassing than green belt.
Okay, so let's rename that committee Green Space, please.
In some of its focus areas would continue to be what the Greenbelt was working on, so.
Yes, but it broadens it a little bit.
Okay.
So I think that committee should probably oversee the green space that we're trying to acquire in Lower Greenmont and help shepherd that forward.
Yeah, I mean, unless there's a central organizing focus for the Greenmont, group of properties, I mean, that, it may be that all needs to be, I don't think we want to be too segmented in terms of who's working on which properties necessarily. It should be part of the bigger plan for the overall thing.
The green space may want to be a subset of that
Yeah,
bigger plan.
yeah.
Yes.
So what group is managing that project? Is it under the property management is kind of taking the lead of that?
Nobody's.
I mean, property management is going to focus on the acquisitions that we've got in progress, because that will eventually come under our management. So we're gonna do the transactions and make sure we're pushing those forward. But I guess I was thinking in terms of like, how do we split up this workload so that everybody's kind of sharing? Maybe it makes sense for you all to say, we're gonna think about this green space and sort of handle those tasks. I mean, you don't have to be out on your own, you'll report to us and we'll contact you, it's like, we're all gonna be in it together, but I think that just in terms of shepherding and making sure tasks are getting done.
Right.
So I just meant like, for instance, we worked on the Hirschman Trail project. The Hirschman Trail project
Right.
connector, are those the things that you'd still want this committee to work on?
Yes.
Okay, so developing property for green space preservations, I know Mr. Stranko's talked about slope easements and those type.
Well, and it's identifying properties for acquisition that will serve green space purposes.
Okay.
Those proposed
Yeah.
tasks that were in that spreadsheet.
How about that?
You have a copy of that in your email?
Yep.
So I guess what I'm thinking about is like, I want to make sure that the committees are kind of sharing the work equally, roughly, and that everybody's on the committee that they want to be on. If anybody is uncomfortable with their current committee, I know you are managed to be off now because you're no longer chair. So we need to plug you in somewhere. So, yeah, I just wanted to kind of, open that up.
I just
and-
can't do that Monday at 1.
Is there a better time for
We
you?
can look at other too.
I just talk lines that time, I can't do that.
Do you want like late afternoon on a different, anytime?
Yeah, Mondays are good, I mean, we do like 4 o'clock on a Monday.
For property management?
Yeah, I just can't do one.
Which Monday?
I think every Monday, isn't it?
I think it's the first Monday of the month.
When are we?
Is when
we
property
setting-
management meets.
When are we setting green space committee meetings?
I want to say it's the third Monday or Tuesday of the month. Let me pull up
I
what.
thought
our
it was the
schedule-
second Monday.
Yeah, let me pull it up on calendar real quick.
Property management is the first Monday, so if we,
Okay.
Just move it to 4, that's all right.
that would be fine with me.
Actually, that's my marketing meeting.
3?
3's fine.
How about 3, Ricky, would that work?
Yeah.
3's good.
So property management, first Monday at 3.
And Dave, do you want to be on that one, or do you want to be on a different one?
Wherever we need to balance, whatever you want to do. I'll do whatever you guys want to do.
I mean, I guess I'm wondering if the Greenmont area doesn't become, with different parcels that are identified for different purposes, or whether it's redevelopment, or whether it's affordable housing, or green space, or recreation, or whatever, isn't that sort of part of the city planning? That sort of looking at that area to say, okay, here's the vision for how this is going to get
Yes.
implemented?
It would be, but I think the agency, the discussion's been, would be taking the lead on kind of shepherding and saying, now we're going to go in and have some community meetings, not necessarily that committee, but being a guiding force in it. If that's what you
Just
want, if
because
that's
we
what you want to
started this
do.
project, we have to kind of make sure
Do we
it
have to
goes
finish
somewhere,
it? Can't we just start it and not complete? Hand it off?
Yeah.
But while we're looking at that, I think next Tuesday at 4 o'clock is the committee meeting,
Yep.
because it was delayed,
Yes.
the 27th.
Okay. So maybe Ricky and Caitlin, could you send us a list of who's on which committees and who is chair and what the definition of them is?
Yes.
We did
just did that
exercise
earlier.
today.
Great. If you could send that out to all of us, then we'll see where we
Sure.
have holes and we can figure out how to move people around. Anything else
Yeah,
on
the
that?
only thing that came up when you and I had been talking was also just how there was sort of a disproportionate amount of tasks among the committees
There are.
too. So it just, I don't know if there's a gap somewhere that, or like, it's a totally different vein, but I kind of suggested maybe you need like a research and communications committee almost, because there's a lot of tasks on here that are like research trends and things like that, or reach out to this property and, you know, that sort of thing, or develop promotional materials, you know. So maybe I'm not saying that there's not value in doing green space stuff, but maybe it belongs more in a property management committee thing, and maybe there's more room for a committee that
Might make sense, yeah.
is sort of managing research and reaching out to other agents. Like, you've got things on there about reaching out to other land reuse agencies to schedule meetings and developing promotional. It seems like you need a communications and
That would be part of
outreach
it,
committee
yeah.
almost. So.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, after you look at everything, make your suggestions and,
Okay.
you know, that sounds like a good plan. I mean, we just sort of did these things ad hoc as things were coming to us, and it seems like a good enough time to reevaluate.
Well, it makes sense to do green space for sure. Maybe it just belongs in a committee rather than having its own dedicated.
I think it does, because I don't think there's necessarily a task to do on green space until there's an opportunity presented or something, you know? And you could fit it into underutilized or management,
Right.
depending on where it goes, so.
And related to that, if I may, with the property being transferred from the city to the agency, do we want to set up a meeting either with property management or underutilized to talk about what the uses would be? I know we did that analysis a few years ago, like what we, you know, do we hold the property?
We do need that. We need to know, I mean, we need a map of all of those things that
Yeah.
were transferred, and we need to list.
Is that best in property management, or? Okay. So that'll be, if that's okay, that'll be an item on the agenda
Next
for the
one,
next meeting.
yeah, that'd be great. All right, so it sounds like discussion for 430 Spruce is going to come in with a communications plan, meeting with Brad. So we will skip that today. And then, do you have something on small area plans, Caitlin?
I printed off some precedent examples for you all to peruse. We don't need to discuss them in detail. A lot of you guys have seen this North Potomac Yard Small Area Plan. This is in the context of the Board of Directors item that's on the strategic planning list, which is to build out this small area plan for the Lower Greenmont area. So this is an example of a really good one, and all I wanted to share was just sort of the framework of how they did this, so that if you all want to start thinking about what the goals are for the small area plan and how you want to kind of conduct it. These guys have a really good table of contents that I think covers a lot of angles that you can examine the sort of area of interest for the small area plan from. Like, you know, for example, they looked at environmental sustainability and performance, and so they took the whole area and looked at it in that context. And so, to show you guys kind of what that looked like, I printed out a chapter. They did urban design. They sort of did like a vision statement of what they wanted for that. They provided precedent and existing examples. They showed a map of the area and where they would like things located. I mean, I know this is super specific, but this is kind of a really good example of a great small area plan that, you know, you can kind of maybe model a reduced version off of for Greenmont. So, yeah, and then what I think is nice about this is after they've made all these suggestions and recommendations, here you can see they break it all down into specified tasks, and they say, here's what needs to happen in order to make this what we want. And then the final chapter of the small area plan is implementation, and so they break down an implementation strategy, and they say how they're going to implement all these goals. And I think that's an important aspect that gets overlooked sometimes. So, yeah, this is a really, really good one. The other one that I gave you guys is a more realistic example of what might actually happen, and this is from the city of Asheville. I always pull stuff from Asheville because I lived there for a little bit, but they did a reduced version. And what's nice about this one is they talked about the plan development process, so we can kind of look at how they conducted the plan development process a little bit to determine, there's some precedent framework for how they go about doing this. And, they did an assessment of the community assets in the neighborhood, and then sort of just talked about, again, they produced a vision statement. So I think, this kind of gives some ideas of like what the goals and what the framework of that small area plan could look like, and at least shows you like what other communities are focusing on and how they're going about this planning process a little bit. There's more of these too. Ithaca, New York has a good one. There's 3 more of these in Asheville, so, yeah.
So this was in the city's comprehensive plan for 2033 specifically for Greenmont, so I assume that the city wants to do that on its own, not just with the land reuse agency pushing it, right?
Yes, it was there was, I think, 5 different plans, and one of them, the big focus was on the downtown and the wharf and the waterfront district. So there are funds set aside to do that, but there's none currently for a
For this
smaller-
one?
Right.
Okay.
So since you guys are doing so much work in housing and green space development, it makes sense, and since a lot of that requires a plan, like, to get funding for, it makes sense to kind of build out this a little bit, through the agency, in my mind, because it helps you have a plan to get funding so that you can do some of the things that you want to do, so.
Do you think this would be covered by CDBG or no?
I do, yeah. What would your thoughts be on that?
It would
have to, there's a,
It'd probably be in the congressional direct spending is where more so the opportunity would be there.
yeah.
But there would be overlap, to your point too, Brent, earlier, like this would also be a planning commission function, because the planning commission obviously has to adopt small area plans along, and then go to council for review and approval too, if we're going to amend the comprehensive plan. So there would be some partnership there. If this was going to be a formal document that the city says is going to guide development, land use changes going forward, it has to be it has to be adopted by the city.
How many properties in Lower Greenmont have changed hands as a result of our work?
10?
I don't know, I mean, I could look it up and find if you want to know the exact
Well,
number.
I'm just sort of thinking, like, we had visitors from the Greenmont Neighborhood Association come, and, they were pretty emphatic about what they needed, and we listened, and we're moving stuff along, but I don't know the extent to which they know what is happening, or if they would, should we do a walkabout there at some point with people from the neighborhood? Should we, say, this is what's planned for this area? I mean, I just don't know what the connection is in terms of a communication strategy, but also developing a plan and looking at how they're doing here. They start with a community meeting and then a stakeholders meeting. I mean, is there are people who are members of the neighborhood association, would they want to go and see what's going on, or?
I think that's a great idea. They're constantly asking for updates and, why are the houses still standing? Where are we in this process of acquiring the property?
Well, could we just do an on-site walkthrough?
Sure,
I mean, do you think people would be interested?
I do, yep.
Should we do it like at the next time you have a meeting scheduled?
I can find out.
I mean, we have to be careful for us that we can't be more than 3 of us, or else it's a meeting. Is that the case? I mean, can we all participate?
Well, what if we
I
attend
think
a
as long
meeting
as we
that
don't
they
make
call?
decisions, right?
I don't know.
If the neighborhood association calls the meeting and we attend?
Yeah, I think that'd be okay, but I'll double check with Ryan on that.
We also just
can't
did this
be
with South Hills.
Right.
We just did a walkthrough with the South Hills neighborhood,
So,
but.
yeah, so if the agency organized it, it'd be a workship, we'd have to get notice.
Yeah.
We'd
But
have
if
to
the
do all that.
neighborhood did it and we participate, would be okay.
It might be a little different, yes, but I'll check.
Yeah, because I was going to say we could structure it like how we did the South Hills one, but they have a representative present, and so.
If that's a bad idea, say so.
No, I think it's a great idea, because they're eagerly awaiting results.
Okay.
And I can only give them so much information, but to actually have, more than just me
Right,
there would probably be extremely beneficial, so.
okay. I mean, and with that, maybe we get Ben Conley to come, and then we get a write-up about it later in the Dominion Post. Just
That has really high readership.
say it again.
Lots of readers, very popular.
The right reason.
She said
Yes.
that has very high readership.
Yes, oh, yes, thanks.
Do they have a different ad
Bastion
system
of
for their
journalism.
electronic ads versus their physical ads? Do they have like?
Yeah, they do, yeah.
Yeah.
Different price.
So you'd rather have a physical one, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
for the old people.
I see why.
There's something about a tangible, like, paper.
No, I'm
get
just
it.
kidding, but I mean, yes, I think certain people read it in paper and certain people
Yeah.
read it online, so, yeah. Okay, well, thank you for showing us those. Is that something that you personally can do with your background?
So I can inform on the process. I could not do a whole entire small area plan like this, but I could definitely help to guide through the process for sure.
Okay.
And I'm knowledgeable about this type of thing. Like I've done these before on a smaller scale, so.
So this one was done by a WVU grad?
No, this one was done for the North Potomac Yard in DC. This
No, I
was
know,
actually,
I'm telling you that this was done by LPDA.
oh, I'm sorry.
So they're grads, both the partners were, and they've been acquired by Kimley Horn, who's now a consultant.
Gotcha,
So-
okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, this is this one's awesome. This would be a dream come true.
Quality stuff. And EDA, I think was the other firm that was involved. So
Okay.
there's the big boys
Yeah.
and girls.
So there's ways to do it with the
Yeah,
third
that's
party,
the plan.
yeah.
All right, anything else to come before the board? Motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Second? All right.
Thank you all. Sorry for the power interruption.